Hiya, and welcome back to Lyre, the game that teaches us that how you know you're the protagonist is if you speak to the god, if you speak to God himself. Yeah, let's just hop right in. Lyle's eyes feel heavy as he steadily wakes up. Yet another night of restless sleep. Do I need a sensor here? Because I don't know. As he shifts his legs around underneath the warm covers, cold air flows under them, sending a fresh feeling up his body. His feet are... Okay, just in case. Got it. His feet are cold and he brings his legs closer to himself. My heart hurts right now. Seeing him sad. Seeing the squishy one sad. The heat from his body should be enough to keep him warm. Not to mention his fur. However, it feels like the cold has been getting worse. He hugs one of his pillows tightly to his body to keep him warm. The feeling of warmth that is usually carried with him has been diminished these past few days. The rest of his senses have finally started to kick in and a strong sensation begins to overtake him. It's a scent. Richter. He's noticed that every time he shifts around in his bed, Richter's scent invades his senses. It's been a few days since their intimacy, yet his smell still lingers. It's not a bad smell by all means. Richter usually smelled so nice. The scent isn't artificial either. It gives off a natural feeling. Thinking about it causes a flood of recent memories to go through his mind. For the past couple of days, every time he wakes up, he feels as if each memory smacks him in the face all over again. Reminding him about everything that's happened with no remorse. It almost feels unbelievable, and sometimes he'll wake up in the morning and as he's still coming to, he'll feel a moment of pure bliss and hope that it was all just a nightmare. It wasn't a nightmare, though. If only it was. His eyes are starting to well up with tears, and he doesn't know if they are watering from waking up or if it's because of sorrow. To be honest, most of his worries come from thinking about Richter. He feels awful knowing that he wasn't able to go and visit Richter yesterday. Lately, the whole castle has been in uproar, and he's barely had a chance to sit down. He knows that Richter is strong, but he just can't bear the thought of him thrown down there. Richter is definitely being fed, but it's still a terrible place to be. And he doesn't deserve it. Sometimes he wishes that he could take his place and be the one that was thrown in a cell. He cares for Richter an awful lot, but somehow that doesn't feel like it has anything to do with this notion. He wholeheartedly believes that Richter was not the one who did it. Knowing this makes a sense of justice swell up inside of him. He cannot allow such a form of injustice to happen. He'll do anything that he can to help Richter. Not just because of love, but because of loyalty. Lyle adjusts himself to get up from bed, and the scent invades his nose once more. Goddamn smile. It's almost intoxicating and reminds him of all the fond memories he's made so far. With his free paw, he traces his fingers from his groin across his navel and up to his abdomen. That night when Richter was the closest he had ever been with anyone. I think you can take a guess of what it is. That night when Richter was inside of him was the closest he had ever been with anyone. Yeah. Both physically and emotionally. He had never truly felt such strong feelings like those until now. He's sure of it. Never has he been so connected with someone who truly understands him. The bed beneath him creaks as he slides his legs off the end and swings them down onto the ground. His padded feet brush the cold floor and send a shiver up his spine as a chilly draft blows over his naked body. This doesn't worry him too much, though, knowing that the air will eventually warm up as the day marches on. Carefully, Lyre stands up and stretches his legs by walking around, giving his body a chance to fully wake up. He only slept for about 3 hours instead of the usual 4 or 5. He feels refreshed, though, and that's all that matters. It's always the short rests that feel the longest. He takes a few steps around his bed and looks out the window. Crisp snow has piled up on the sill, and the morning sun shimmers through the top of it like crystals. The room has a dull and cozy glow to it which contrasts the colorful morning sky outside. Lyre swiftly walks to the other side of his room near the door and puts on a long cotton coat. Lifting the coat up and sliding his arms into the sleeves allow him to get a whiff of his own body. It's not a terrible smell, but he could definitely use a bath. Last one he took was a quick one he had right before everything fell apart. He'd like to visit Richter later and wouldn't want to smell unclean. He'll also have to attend Prince Adrius' coronation. That's supposed to happen sometime this morning, so he should have time afterwards. Lyre then takes a pair of underwear and slides them on along with a pair of thick trousers. Taking another look around his room, he notices that everything is still the way it was that night. The fire is out and the bed sheets are disheveled, but everything is still in its place. Even the ballroom clothes that were thrown on the ground in a pile are still bundled up on the floor against his bed. It's like a memory frozen in time. Gathering up a few things, he made a motion for the door before noticing something. There's a piece of parchment face down on the ground that's been slid under the door. He bends over and picks it up, flipping it over to read. It's Leaf, the bird. Leaf wants to meet with him after the coronation? Why? Whatever it is, he hopes it isn't more bad news. He walks over to the dresser and unlocks the top drawer, throwing the letter inside. Whatever he wants to talk about most likely has nothing to do with what's going on, but this letter gives off a feeling of urgency. He'll most likely have to visit with him before seeing Richter. Not only that, but he still has work to do everywhere else, along with figuring out how to save Richter from being strung up by his neck. He shakes this horrible thought out of his mind as he goes for the door. He takes a few steps out into the hall and looks left and right, hoping that nobody is coming. The entire corridor is empty as he strides in the direction of the stairs leading to the bathroom, leading to the bathing room. He's clothed, of course, but he would rather be alone with his thoughts right now. The private bath next to his room is ideal, but right now he'd rather use the one near Richter's room. It's comfortable and people rarely use it. Most things in the guest wing are usually better quality. It's honestly a good thing the coronation is today. Everyone in the castle is probably getting ready or already outside of the throne room. Even the staff is most likely prepping for some posh thing afterwards. Lyre wouldn't really know. He's never been to a coronation. The cold yet fresh air wafts onto his face as he emerges from the inner halls. Weather around this time of year is cold enough to chap his nose badly. He brings his paws up to his snout and breathes into them as he walks down each twist and turn of the hall. Right as he's coming up to the bathroom door, he spots Richter's room down the hall. The door is still propped open. They're probably still conducting a search of the place. He would have been a part of it, but they asked him not to intervene since he was so close with Richter. He was a bit offended by it, but tried not to let it bother him. Swiftly, he slips into the bathroom, escaping the cold. His padded feet immediately touch the damp floor, and he has to stop himself from slipping as he steps through the doorway. The room echoes as the door shuts behind him with a soft thud. Everything smells the way it usually does, and the room is cast in a glow of colorful light from the windows above. The white marble shines even brighter because of it. Walking over to the levers, he pulls on the ones he usually uses. He pulls the water one all the way down and then takes the one that says oil and pulls it down just a little bit. Oils. Along with pulling the soap lever down, of course. He watches as the water begins to funnel out of the faucets at the top. The scent of coconuts and natural plant aromas invade his senses as the water splashes to the bottom of the already damp pool. He begins to take off his clothes and set them on the bench nearest to the door. Nobody is here right now, so there's no need to go to the changing room. Gently he steps into the tub and lowers himself into the hot water. It's a relaxing feeling that envelops his whole body. He dunks his head under the water and scrubs with his paws all around his fluff. He brings his head up from underneath the water and imagines that he now looks like a wet mop. He shakes his head a bit, splattering water everywhere and slightly drying his head fur. After that, he lays back against the wall of the pool and lets the water rush around him. This environment allows him to truly think. At least, as long as nobody bothers him. After a few moments of sitting there in the pool of warm water, he realizes something. Even though he has the determination to do it, how is he going to help Richter? He's no detective. Damn it. He begins to slowly scrub himself down, cleaning himself thoroughly. Going around and asking questions would certainly help, but who would he start with? He contemplates for a moment before remembering something. The dagger that was found at the scene of the crime has intrigued him since he first laid eyes on it. It looked like an ordinary dagger at first glance, but something seems off about it. Unique in a way. He has to figure that out sooner or later. Where did that dagger come from? Maybe he would figure out who the owner was? Eden. Eden would be the best person to talk to. He supplies the best weapons in the village and is a master of his craft. He's made weapons for the highest nobles around, including being the one who crafted Raynar's sword. He should know at least something. Lyre rises a bit from the water with the feeling of triumph now that he has a clearer goal in mind. He'll clear Richter's name. He has to. He finishes cleaning himself and gets out of the bath. His fur is now sleek and shines a rich brown color in the morning light. Water drips off of his body and onto the slippery floor, creating small puddles around him. Walks over to the levers and resets them, allowing the water to stop and the pool to drain. Walking over to the bench, he takes a dry towel off of the clean pile and begins to lightly dry his fur, but not too much. He doesn't want to get rid of the oils in his fur that help keep it shiny and smooth. Once he's done patting himself down with the towel, he places it in the basket and broadens his stance. He then proceeds to shake his body, mostly his head, almost like how a dog would when they are wet. Water flings off of him, creating a thick mist cloud, and his fur fluffs up for a moment before laying back down on his body. He wouldn't dream of doing something like that in front of someone. He usually tends to keep his canine tendencies to himself and refrains from acting in such a way in front of people. After that little bit of theatrics, he dresses himself, the dry clothes sticking to his damp body, and then leaves through the door. After laying down and allowing himself to fully dry off, Lyre rises from his bed and begins to get ready for the ceremony. It's best if he arrives a little bit early. Looking at one of the mirrors on his wall, he runs his paws through his fur. As untamable as it is, he'd like for his fur to look as decent as possible. After tidying up his fur, he walks over to his armor stand. His ceremonial armor is loosely thrown onto it from the night before. He takes the full bodysuit and slides it up his legs and around his torso, sliding his arms into the sleeves. It's warm and lined with leather on the inside. He then takes the breastplate, gorget, and connected pauldrons and puts them on. He's gotten a lot better at putting his armor on by himself over the years. It's a relatively easy set of armor to put on, considering it's mostly meant to be ornamental. The armor that he would wear in actual combat is somewhere in a trunk, and that's very hard to put on. It would be easier with 2 people, maybe a squire, but Lyre refused to have a squire when the opportunity was given to him. He doesn't entirely need the help, and he has no wisdom to offer yet. He just had to accept that he would be wasting their time. Raynar wasn't upset about it, though. He rarely ever got upset at things. Locking the last bracer onto his wrist, he stands in the mirror and looks himself over. His armor may look a bit ridiculous at times, but it's very comfortable and protects from the cold perfectly. He latches the cape onto his pauldrons, equips the sheath for his sword, and goes to leave for the door. Just as he's about to leave, he looks at the helmet still sitting on the armor rack. It's a typical knight's helmet, fitted to a wolf's head and even styled to look like a wolf. Every knight in the Royal Guard has one styled after their species, but nobody ever wears them. They're extremely uncomfortable and not really needed for day-to-day duties. Most knights either carry them around under their arms or just don't even bother to bring them. For a moment, Lyre considers bringing it to the ceremony, but then reconsiders knowing that he won't even be on duty. Even as captain, he'll most likely just get to hang back in the crowd and watch from the center of the room. He can't help but wonder if they planned it this way. Maybe they didn't want the one person who was closest to Richter planted right alongside the throne. Then again, nobody has really accused Lyre of anything yet. He steps through the door and out into the dim corridor. Thankfully, the throne room isn't too far from his bedchambers. He can even hear some distant chatter coming from where the throne room is. It's pretty far away, but his hearing is better than most. He starts walking down the hall with his paw relaxingly placed on the handle of his dagger. On his way, he passes a few people who are clearly making an effort to pay him no mind. Being one of the tallest people in the hallway can make it hard to blend in. It appears that most people are trying to avoid contact with him, though. He notices that when he makes eye contact with some people, they avert their eyes and continue to talk with whoever they're strolling with. He'll just have to get used to it. People will be people. More and more people clog the hall as he approaches the large doors leading into the throne room. Some of the people he recognizes as nobility from the nearby cities. There are a lot of lords and traders of all different shapes and sizes. He even spots a few heads of some smaller noble houses from the west. They're wearing their crests proudly and chatting amongst themselves. There's even a small band off to the side talking with each other and tuning their instruments. Everyone is standing up against the walls and pillars, allowing the light to beam through the windows onto the floor. It shines brightly and illuminates the whole room, giving each plant on the wall a healthy glow. Lyle desperately tries to spot anyone in the crowd that he knows so he's not standing around awkwardly. Suddenly, he hears someone a short distance away say his name. Sir Lyle? Lyle turns around to see Kadash standing there, his paws behind his back. He has a thoughtful expression on his face. The charismatic attitude he carries is currently absent. Hello, Lord Kadash. I hope things are well. As well as they can be. He looks at the ground in discomfort. I also hope that things are good with you, given everything that's happened. Lyle would start venting about his problems right here, right now, but he decided to give the simplest answer. Kadash doesn't know him too well, so we'll try to spare him the details. Nothing's been great, but all I can do is keep moving forward. That's all any of us can do. Unfortunately for myself, I'm unable to go anywhere. Being a hostage and all that. He says that last bit in a joking tone, but Lyle takes it very seriously. Well, we have to keep an open mind when it comes to these things. Surely you understand how everyone's suspicions are fairly placed. Oh, of course. It makes plenty of sense. He says this with a hint of sarcasm sprinkled with sincerity. I am willing to be compliant for the sake of order. Lord Richter and I have talked about this before, and he knows how passionate I am when it comes to that. He swings his paws to the front and claps them, arms drooping down while bouncing on his heels. By the way, how is our mutual friend? I really hope that he's okay. He's as good as anyone would be in a prison cell, but last I saw him he seemed to be taking it better than most. Richter's strong, so I know he'll get through it. Their conversation has been lowered to a whisper as Lyle begins to speak of Richter. He's definitely the best of us when it comes to that. Something about him has always struck me as different. He's skilled politically, but still holds strength in other areas. What do you mean by that? Well, I don't know much about his past, but I'd assume since he's not of noble blood, there's something interesting to be said of it. Lyle wonders why Kadash is bringing this up. It is a bit interesting. Most of what I know is that Richter was a commoner that rose to a high position of power. Something about it being like a game to him. He never talks about it much. He doesn't seem to be someone fixated on the past. No, he doesn't. At least, not his own. Yeah. Lyle looks down with a bit of sadness in his eyes. You really care for him, don't you? What? His blunt statement takes him a bit off guard. To be fair, he was spacing out a bit. Sorry, I didn't mean to pry. It's just I've been hearing people talk. Yes, well, people talk. I know, but I don't care much for that. Talking is one thing, but seeing is another. Mainly, I noticed the way you look at him. I don't mean to offend, but it's blatantly obvious. Lyle shifts uncomfortably, not liking where this chat is going. The blush on his face is clear as day. Where is this going? Please don't take this the wrong way. I have no intention of showing any form of judgment. Where I am from, I also have someone that I care for deeply, as much as I hate to admit it. He says this last part under his breath. You'll never hear any judgment from me. I am only here to help, and I know how much you care for him. Lyle makes a puzzled and embarrassed face. Whatever anybody thinks is up to them. I appreciate your concern, Lord Kadash, but we don't need your sympathies. Lyle. Kadash suddenly takes him by the arm and brings him to a secluded corner of the room, bringing his tone to a hissing whisper. I don't want to see Richter swinging by his neck, or losing it. He loosens his grip on Lyle's arm and lowers his head. Lyle sees a look of doom appear on his expression. I'm not entirely sure how these things work, but this doesn't look good for him. Or you. I know that, and I'm pretty sure I know how these things work. Lyre is slowly getting more and more annoyed as the conversation continues. Have you ever participated in a trial? No. Have you ever witnessed a trial? I've witnessed one, but it wasn't for anything big. Maybe Kadaj is right. He might not be prepared for this after all. So you understand how quick something like this can be. They're never quick. This one will be. He was found at the scene of a crime in almost impossible circumstances, accused of killing a king. Not to mention, he's not of noble blood. If it wasn't for his rank, he would have most likely been killed on the spot. He's right. Lyre recalls the night when Bjorn tried to kill Richter. Sometimes he forgets how important blood is. Not to mention his foreign status. If it was a common castle servant or run-of-the-mill guard, then it wouldn't be that big of a problem. His status makes this 10 times worse. I like to think he didn't do it, but even if he's innocent and found guilty, Lyre will still end up executing a foreign ambassador. And depending on where it goes, it could lead to an all-out war. And if he did do it, then it means something much worse. He didn't do it. This escapes Lyle's mouth like a growl, surprising even him. Believe what you want, but that won't help him. I know, but he didn't. I just know it. So that leaves me. That's not what I was implying. I'm sorry, am I interrupting something? It's Bird. Leaf walks up next to Lyle, looking at the two of them with a curious gaze. No, Surrey and I were just talking about Lord Richter. Leaf dons an annoyed expression. Yes, I'm sure everyone is. He turns to Lyle. Can I borrow you for a moment? Both Leaf and Lyle look to Kadaj. Do you mind? No, it's quite alright. There will be plenty of time to talk later. He swiftly turns to Leaf and nods. Lord Leaf? Leaf's eyes light up for just a moment and Lyle can tell he's flattered. Actually, it's just Leaf. As you please. He looks to Lyle. I hope to speak with you again soon, Sir Lyle. Sure. With that, Kadaj turns around and walks off toward the front of the throne room. Leaf takes Lyle by the paw and leads him to another corner of the room. Lyle has to hunch over a bit, but follows behind. Lyle, I haven't had a chance to say this, but I'm really sorry about everything that happened. I know that our king was like a father to you, and he was a dear friend to me for a very long time. His little gloved wing is still gripping Lyle's paw tightly. Not only that, but our friend from Erin is accused of being the killer. Lyle can tell that his voice is a bit weak. What I'm trying to say is that I know how you feel, and our poor prince is in a lot of pain because of all of this. He pulls on Lyle's paw and brings him closer to his face. So please refrain from speaking about these things in public. This is probably the most worked up Lyle has ever seen Leaf. He lets go of his paw and relaxes his body a bit. Alright, I'm sorry. Why shouldn't I? Because right now we need to keep things a bit under control. He lowers his voice to the softest whisper. Lyle has to lean in to hear him even with his enhanced hearing. If anybody hears of these little conversations, word will spread. Public opinion can be a huge detriment to something like this. And we can't have this situation delve into more chaos than it already has. Do you understand what I'm saying? I suppose. You need to keep a low profile. Feel free to ask questions to those you truly trust, but try to stay away from gossip and rumors. Oh, it wasn't like that. As much as I don't personally trust Kadaj, especially at the moment, he wasn't trying anything like that. It's small, but I do get the feeling that he wants to prevent Richter's head from being put on a spike. Either that, or he just wants the peace that he's always preaching about. Or both. Leaf shuffles slightly. This is why I wanted to talk to you in private later. I think I may have found something. Something that has to do with Richter. I wanted to show it to you first, though. What is it? Leaf grips his wings together tightly. I can't talk about it here. Lyle crosses his arms with an impatient look on his face. He didn't think things had to be this private. Okay. I'll head straight to your study after this. Got it? Right. Goodbye for now. Leaf scuttles off into the crowd of people and takes his place at the front. Given his height, it makes sense. Lyle goes to take his place in the crowd, yet he overhears something from a group of people. An old lord is talking to a man of similar qualities. From what I hear, he was assigned to the traitor as a bodyguard by King Raynar himself. A glorified servant, if you ask me. It can't be that bad, can it? Yes, well, it grew to be something more than that. Lyle slowly walks up to the man, his paw still resting on his dagger. According to the rumors, they've become something like blasphemous lovers. Honestly, I sometimes wonder why he was even given the rank of captain in the first place. Ahem. The first noble turns around with a smarmy grin on his face. The second and third already saw Lyre approaching and quickly avert their gazes with embarrassed expressions. I couldn't help but overhear you speaking ill of Lord Richter, and myself. The fact that Richter is in a cell won't stop me from letting him fight his own battles, but you've also insulted me. I would advise you not to talk about things you know nothing about, unless you want to fight the one of whom you spoke so rudely. The man grumbles to himself and straightens his jacket. Please. The lord you speak of isn't even a lord, and despite your rank, you're a northern bumpkin from a dying family. I wouldn't be throwing your strength around if I were you, Lord Reed. It's Captain Reed to you. And I'll defend myself against anybody who speaks behind my back like a coward. My allegiance is to this kingdom and its people, but I will not bow to the likes of you. With that, he turns around and walks away. One of the idiots says something, but he doesn't listen. They can have the last word if they want, but he's not going to stoop to their level. He knows that this completely goes against Leaf's advice, but he's not just going to let people get away with stuff like that. He still has pride. If they want to gossip about him or Richter, they better make sure he's out of earshot. Lyre moves up a bit more toward the center of the crowd and stands in front of a tall bull and bear. He doesn't want to block anyone's view. After about a minute of waiting, the noise begins to calm down. Everyone in the hall is silent, aside from a few whispers. Lyre can see Liz standing off to the side of the throne. Her silhouette is bathed in a golden glow. Across from her, someone in a green robe. They're holding a small pillow, and on it sits the crown. Raynar's crown. It's probably been fit to Adrius' head, but it's definitely still the same crown. It's been passed down through the Ossian family for as long as anybody knows. A door opens to the right side of the room, and there stands Adrius. His face is dull and emotionless, like a statue. He's also wearing a gaudy cloak that Lyre remembers hearing about. It's a wool cloak of a rich green color. The collar is adorned with purple feathers, and the inside is lined with purple fur. This is a ceremonial cloak that all kings wear when they are crowned. He is accompanied by 2 guards who walk him up to the throne room and then depart. Adrius slowly turns around to face the crowd. All eyes are upon him, and everyone is silent. The musicians have already begun to play their symphony, and it fills the halls with angelic noise. The suspense flows out over the audience like a wave as they wait for Adrius to speak. I had not wished to be here, standing before all of you on this day. He pauses shortly into his speech. His voice is a bit shaky, yet he continues. But the day has come, and I cannot lie by saying that I had not prepared for it. Every prince has this responsibility put on them since the day they are born. It terrifies us, it haunts us, and yet we endure. Not for our sake or our fathers, for the sake of the people. Our people. He gestures off to his side in the direction of the castle town. Today I speak for the pride of Lyre, the pride of this kingdom and its people. History has finally crossed paths with destiny. And we as a kingdom must band together as one, to ensure our survival and take control. He clenches his fist with determination. Liz is looking upon him proudly, and everyone in the crowd is practically holding their breath. I have but one dream, one goal to strive behind. It is a promise to myself and a sacred vow to all of you. I will not lead you astray. I will take action, and there will be no compromise. We will not buckle, break, or yield in the face of those who mean to put us down. We as a kingdom will dig our heels in and push back. You will give me all you have, and in return, I will give you everything. His voice wavers a bit, but he keeps going. I will ensure that our kingdom prospers, and I will make no excuses. I am not a man of hollow promises. This is my vow. I, Adrius Ossian, son of Raynar Ossian, swear before the lands of Tigran and all of their splendor, that I will leave this kingdom greater than I found it. Let the higher gods bear witness. We will persevere. After taking a moment of pause, he looks down and nods to the person in the cloak. They begin to speak toward him in a soft voice that somehow echoes throughout the hall. Adrius Ossian, son of Raynar Ossian and Elena Ossian, rightful ruler of the Lyrian throne, do you proclaim today that you will protect the people of Lyre and guide them toward a better future? Are you prepared to follow and fulfill the responsibilities of a true monarch by keeping the peace, upholding the law, and administering justice? There's a short pause before he confirms. I will. The hooded figure slowly holds out the pillow. Liz steps forward and takes the crown. She raises it up to place on his head. I now pronounce you King Adrian Ossian, ruler of Lyre and one of the Holy Triad. The crown is placed upon his head and Liz steps back. May his rule be long and prosperous. The throne room erupts with applause. Foreshadowing. Lyle claps along with them, but notices something. Adrius could rarely be caught in a good mood. But an even rarer occurrence was to see him cry. These were not the tears that would be shed after witnessing something beautiful, nor were they the tears of a proud leader. They were not tears of joy. Part 2. Adrius. The rest of the day moves by dreadfully slow. Adrius sits on his father's throne, stiff and uncomfortable. He knows that he belongs here, but it doesn't feel right. It's been his destiny since he was born, but achieving it in this way was not how he wanted it. He looks around the room, his eyes dancing around at the people that fill it. Dun, 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 dun. Adrius has a fall. He looks around the room, his eyes dancing around at the people that fill it. Leaves softly fall down from the overgrown trees above to land among the crowd. Some of them he recognizes from the village, business owners and shopkeepers. Some of them are wealthy traders. Everyone else is just noble lords and ladies from the rest of Lyre. Their extravagant designs on their clothes contrast the muted color scheme that seems to be so popular with this part of the land. That crafty feline from Driss sticks out like a sore thumb amongst the crowd in his bright green coat. It's not hard to, though. Almost more than half the room is empty by now. Nobles come up to the throne one by one and wished him a long and prosperous rule, shaking his hand and bowing. He'd said he enjoyed this little bit of social interaction, but right now that's the last thing he wants. The amount of emotions he's been keeping bottled up these past 2 days have been taking a toll on him. Right now, he just wishes he could be alone. To his right is Elizabeth. She's leaning against one of the walls, arms down by her side with a dull expression upon her face. Even Adrius could never understand why she always looked so bored with everything. She notices him glancing in her direction and approaches. Something's wrong? Isn't it obvious? Adrius. Somehow she manages to throw him a look of both understanding and irritation at the same time. I apologize. No, it's okay. I know you've been through a lot lately. It's not that. I'm just tired of being surrounded by all of these people. He leans toward her. Forgive me, but I'm not in the best state of mind right now. And that's okay. I understand how these things can be a bit emotionally draining. If you want, I can take over from here. Almost everyone is gone now, and the after party will start in a bit. It's best you go and prepare for that. That's true. He adjusts the crown on his head. It was professionally fitted for him, but it's still a bit big. I suppose I could let you take over. But I don't think there's really much to do from here. If I were to stay, it would just be me sitting here watching as everyone talks with each other. He stands from his throne and rests his hand on the armrest. I know that your position as war minister is being tested right now. The future isn't looking too bright, but in order to achieve my dream, we'll need to play it smart. Of course. I'll offer my advice wherever I can. Sometimes Adrius wonders why his father even had an advisor. To him, it seems like he treated everyone like a consultant. Your advice is welcome. At least I'll have someone older than myself for an advisor. Yes, I suppose. That is something that always bothered me about father. What's that? I mean, no offense by this, but why did he choose you as an advisor? Usually it's usually some standard to have someone much older than oneself to advise you on these matters. She at first seems confused, but then equips that smirk she always has. Your father never saw it that way. He once told me that wisdom and age aren't everything. He valued the youth of our generation, said that their outlook on life and untainted experiences were what this world needed in order to achieve a brighter future. All of that along with a king who chose to listen to the right people. Adrius taps a leaf on the ground with his hoof while listening to Elizabeth. She leans forward, looking into his eyes with her hands behind her back as if to get his attention. He believed that advice could be found anywhere. Trust me, growing up he had plenty of old and wise men and women teaching him everything he knew. But as he got older, he searched for a different point of view, choosing people he trusted to lead a good example, whether young or old. As she says this, Adrius glares out into the crowd and spots Lyre. He's talking with another wolf, a local baker from the looks of it. They finish their conversation, and Lyre heads out into the hall. Adrius steps away from the throne, still looking at Lyre. Not everyone has... Adrius, please don't. I just want to talk with him. He snaps his fingers, signaling the two guards standing by the side door to follow him. They quickly rise from their slumped-over positions and follow behind him. Adrius walks down the steps and heads straight down the long green carpet, people stepping out of his way and bowing. He pays them no mind, his eyes trained on that bastard if he had tunnel vision. Ever since that night, he's been wanting to confront him alone. Lyle's been sulking about ever since, as if it was his father that was murdered. Oh yes, he must be so conflicted. Adrius exits the throne room and turns the corner, looking down the hall. He spots Lyre moseying down the corridor, his tail swishing left to right in an almost rhythmic way, causing his cape to flutter side to side. He's not going in the direction of his room, though. Dog! He slumps his shoulders and turns around slowly with a look of annoyance. King Adrius. How many times must I beg you to not call me that? That's what dogs do, though, right? They beg. I know Adrius is a king, but honestly, he just needs a good bitch slap. The guards stand behind Adrius now, their faces expressionless and their gaze straight ahead. I suppose. Anyway, what do you want? He says this with a tone of indignation. Adrius fiddles with his shoulder cape as he speaks. Oh, it's nothing. I just wanted to speak with you about everything that's happened, personally. These past few days have been rather busy. Lyre straightens himself out a bit. Yes, they have. I'm really sorry about what happened. To lose one's father is truly a terrible thing. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Adrius grips his shoulder cape a bit tighter in his fist. He's been hearing several different variations of that phrase all week. None of them have felt genuine except for his, which irks him the most. Yes, thank you for your kind words, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. Lyre slumps down a bit more. His shoulders are as low as they can be. Oh? Yes, I'm sure you saw this coming, but I wanted to talk to you about your assignment. Guarding the traitor and all that. He jumps at this statement. He didn't do it. Yes, I know that you believe with all of your heart that he wasn't the one to do it. But can't you see that he's lying to you? Lyre is silent, glaring at him with those wolfen eyes. Hold up! Oh god. He wouldn't lie to me. Really? How do you know that? He goes to speak, hesitates, then continues. Because I know him. Better than you, at least. Oh, of course. Adrius rolls his eyes at this notion. You silly dog. I barely know him, and I'm assuming the worst about him with strong evidence. You've only known him for, let's be generous and say a month. And yet you act like you know him enough to assume he's perfectly innocent. Those two don't really seem comparable, do they? Lyle's lip quivers a bit before making an irritated expression. He quickly turns around and begins to walk in the opposite direction. I've had enough of this conversation. It's been fun, but you're going to visit him right now, aren't you? He staggers a bit with his footsteps and turns around while still walking. No, I'm actually just... You love him, don't you? Lyre then stops in his tracks completely. After all he's done? He stands there with his mouth agape, clearly thinking of how to respond. Adrius enjoys the way people have to tread on glass while speaking with him. One little slip up, and they're putty in his hands. Finally he speaks. I don't really know what you're talking about. Oh, but you do. I can see it in those big eyes of yours. Adrius steps forward with his hands behind his back, leaning in a bit. Are you sure he's not just leading you on? If I recall, it's happened before in the past. Lyre visibly clenches his fist. That was different. Adrius crosses his arms over his chest and nods. Yes, of course. Only you would know. Richter is different. Ah, so you do love him. Lyre turns to walk away. Really, I must be... Tell me, did you fall head over heels for him before or after he fucked you? pillow, we are going to smother this fucking twink. We are going to fucking murder him. Let's go. Prep the sticks, boys. Prep the sticks. We got a dead body to poke. Shut up, Adrius. Adrius doesn't move from his spot, but the two guards behind him flinch a little as Lyre lets his emotions get the better of him. I'm going to pretend that was a question and not a statement, for your sake. Lyre realizes what he just did and backs down, his tail tucked between his legs. I'm sorry, don't apologize, you fool. I'm going to make one thing perfectly clear. Do you understand? You're not going to visit with him anymore. I'm sorry? Richter, I don't want you seeing him. I can't have your emotions interfering with this trial. You need to understand what's at stake here, Lyre. I understand what's at stake here. You need to understand that something crazy is going on. He didn't kill Raynor, and whoever did it is probably still lurking around. And they might be out for your head. Adrius holds up a hand, not wanting to hear any more of his nonsense. That may be so, but this is the safest option right now. I'm giving you an order, Lyre. If I catch you in that dungeon again, I'll have you punished. With that, Lyre backs away with a solemn expression on his face. His tail is limp between his legs. As you wish. He turns and sulks away. Good dog. I'll tell him you said hi. Adrius throws his capes to the side and turns in the other direction. That motherfucker did not just verbally beat the shit out of Lyre and then sashay slay in the other direction. He did not just do that. He needs more than a good old-fashioned bitch slap. Come. The guards behind him quickly turn and follow him, trying to keep up with his fast pace as he walks down the corridor. Adrius isn't even mad at Lyre. Lyle's loyalties to this kingdom are far too strong for him to break faith, but he can't let his emotions influence this trial. Descending the staircase, he reaches the bottom and turns around the corner. More stairs lead him down into the depths of the castle. It becomes increasingly more chilly with each step he takes. The floor is damp and cold along with the walls. Finally, they reach the bottom, a long hallway with cells lining the left side. It smells like spring water. There's a guard posted at the entrance. His eyes are tired and his body is slumped against the wall. He sees Adrius and instantly straightens up. Stay. The guards behind Adrius stand by the door to the stairwell as he continues through the tunnel. He always hated it down here. He came down here once to play as a child and let his imagination get the better of him. For the next couple of years, he was deathly afraid of these dungeons. Playing in the gardens was much more preferable. His mother enjoyed chasing him through the bushes and would even help him climb trees. She always had a few gowns that were covered in grass stains. Eventually, those just became her gardening clothes. Why is he remembering this now? He's been unintentionally thinking of childhood memories a lot lately. Given current events, it would make sense that they constantly try to breach the walls of his mind. He can't let those memories get to him, though. Not now. For what it's worth, he doesn't have a single worry when it comes to ruling. Whatever happens will happen, but as long as it's within his control, he'll prevail. He has to. As long as he keeps pushing through, no matter the struggle, he'll reach that goal. The hallway stretches on into a dim horizon, almost bending. Each cell he passes, he looks inside to try and spot him. And with each empty cell, he grows more and more concerned that he somehow escaped. That would be impossible, and stupid. After a few minutes, he reaches the last cell and looks inside. At first, he half expected it to be empty, but this was not the case. There he is. He's just sitting there on the dirty floor, slouching with his back against the wall. His eyes are distant and far away as he stares off into empty space. It's almost like he's looking at nothing. It's only been a few days. He can't have gone insane already. Along with all of this, he isn't decently dressed. All he's wearing right now is his undershirt, trousers, and a pair of socks. Already lost it, have we? Upon hearing his voice, Richter turns and looks at Adrius. His eyes are sullen and his face lacks almost all emotion. His pupils are a deep shade of purple, which causes Adrius a moment of confusion. He shrugs this off, having never paid attention to his eye color before. He wonders if that's normal for humans. Not yet. He shifts his legs slightly, adjusting himself. I imagine that upsets you? Not really. It doesn't make me feel anything. Just knowing you're down here is the only assurance I need. Well, it's been fun talking with you then. Nice crown. He goes back to staring at the floor. Adrius is finding it harder and harder to keep his cool. His anger has reached its boiling point. If you think I'm going to be dismissed by someone sitting in a cell, then you truly have gone mad. Richter sighs, drumming his fingers on his leg. I know why you came down here. You're looking in the wrong place, though. I didn't do it. Of course you didn't, he says this in a sarcastic tone. Richter, I didn't come all the way down here to debate whether you did it or not. I don't need to. Then why did you come down here? What more do you want from me? What more can you do to me? Nothing really. Only justice can get me what I want. Your nobility, as fake as it is, grants you a bit of safety down here. Not to mention, if we don't go about this right, it could start a war. Punishing you before the trial would cause problems. But you already know that. I just wanted to make sure you're suffering. Richter smirks for just a second before bringing his face back to its original expression. He says something under his breath. No, I don't think I can say that. What was that? Nothing. Just talking to myself. Okay. Oh, I should mention this before I forget. Your manservant won't be seeing you anymore. Richter looks up, his attention being pulled in Adrius' direction as if it were tugged on a rope. What? Yes, I've forbidden him from coming down to comfort you during your stay here. Richter glares at him with a look of confusion. Manservant? Comfort me? What are you talking about? There's no need to hide it. Everyone knows about your scandalous relationship. Richter lets out a little sigh of relief. That's not surprising. I can't say I didn't see this coming. Honestly, I understand wanting to make as many friends as possible as a foreign political figure, but don't you think this is taking it a little bit too far? Adrius whispers this at him in a mocking tone, and Richter slumps more into the wall. Ha ha. Shut up. At first, Adrian is taken aback by his miniature outburst, but he quickly regains control. That's no way to talk to a king, is it? Then again, you wouldn't know much about showing respect to kings. Says one who constantly disrespected his father at every turn. Adrius shrugs his comment off, knowing it isn't true. He runs his hand along one of the cell bars, staring daggers at Richter. You think we're the same, don't you? What? You believe that we are similar. Comparable. No, we're very different. The difference between the two of us is simple, but I'll dumb it down for you. Get on with it. You've played chess, right? I assume you do. It's a common strategic game in Erin. If you're going to make a chess analogy in front of me, it better be good. Oh, who am I kidding? Even if it's bad, I'll still get amusement out of it. Quiet. As I was saying, the difference between the two of us is that you see this as a game. To you, it's all a board of pieces to be moved, altered, and shifted. Pawns to be played, such as our dear friend Lyre. Lyle's a knight. You know, the horsey piece. And kings to be checked. Adrius interrupts him to continue his comparison. For you, the game can be shelved. You and the fools that you follow with that you get to follow you with tails wagging can walk away from all of this. And even if you lose, he gestures to the cell Richter is currently sitting in. It won't matter in the end. It won't be remembered. You won't be remembered. Richter stares into his eyes with curiosity. I never had that option. If I lose, if my piece on the board is checked, then I will be forever remembered for it. If I fail, nobody will forget it. Adrius backs away to leave and looks at Richter. I hope you take solace in that. Adrius turns on his hoof and strides away. Before he can get out of earshot, however, Richter approaches the door and retorts. And what if I was never even your opponent? Adrius turns back around in the direction of the cell. Then the game is truly lost. With that, he continues down the long tunnel. Once he reaches the beginning, he turns to the guard standing at the entrance. There will be no further visits from Sir Reed. This is an order that needs to be relayed to the rest of the guards stationed down here. Am I clear? The guard salutes in response. Good. Adrius turns to the guards standing by the stairs. He walks past them, snapping his fingers. The guards follow behind him, their clattering armor echoing throughout the tunnel, until all that's left is silence. Bruh. Part 3, Richter. Standing by the cell door, I wait to hear until Adrius is out of earshot. I hear him mumble something about Lyre to one of the guards. He's really doing it. Damn it. I was trying my hardest to keep my cool while he was down here, especially since he caught me while I was in the mind's eye. I reach down, grabbing clumps of straw in my fists, and proceed to throw them to the side in a fit of rage. I get on my knees and bury my face in my hands, hunching over and grimacing into my palms. Knowing I would still get to see Lyre while I'm down here was the only thing keeping me going. This and trying to figure out this mess. Throwing a tantrum won't solve anything. Now all I have is this incessant voice in my head. It still sounds like they're talking to me through a wall, but it's getting easier. It certainly makes me feel better. I whisper this under my breath. For a time. If it makes you feel any better, I'm sorry that this happened to you. Oh please, you saw it coming. You know everything that's going to happen. Not really. It's a bit more complicated than that. I stand up and walk over to my bed, sitting down on its hard surface. I wish I could warn you about these things. Really, I do! Guiding my avatars is like taking care of a plant. A very annoying and needy plant. They constantly require things, and if I give them something wrong, they die. That's reassuring. I understand you miss him, but you can't let this sway your resolve. I know, I won't let it. I just wish I didn't have to be away from him. He's practically the only person I have left to talk to. Besides you, of course. I am well aware. I lay down on my back, staring at the cracked ceiling. Do you feel as if you've grown dependent on him? No! It's nothing like that. It's not like I need him or anything. Well, shouldn't you know? You've been watching this whole time. You know how I feel about him. There's no response at first. Do you love him? Of course! No. This isn't an interrogation. I don't doubt you. I'm asking you right here, right now. Their voice becomes a bit more clear. Do you love him? I stare at the ceiling and wait before answering. They can probably read my thoughts or something and know exactly what I'm going to say. It seems impossible, even irrational from an outside perspective, but yes, I love him. Good. Use that. You can't let these things stop you or get in your way. I sit up from my resting position. You're right. I can't let this stop me. I just hope that Lyre is doing alright. Do you know if he's okay? There's no response. Damn, you're good. Please, I've been doing this for countless years. I learned from my mistakes, and if you're going to get out of this, you're going to have to do the same. But I'm getting better. I've been practicing using the mind's eye to see into the past for a couple of days. I'm getting a little better at it, able to see different events here and there, but nothing specific. And it's all so far back that it has almost no relevance. You're not even that close. Seeing into the past is one thing, but seeing something that so recently happened, that is a monumental task. Then I'll keep working at it. Good. I sit down on the floor and close my eyes, getting ready to enter the mind's eye again. Unfortunately, time in the real world does pass if I'm just having visions. Time only stands still outside when I enter the realm of the mind's eye. It's something like a sanctuary. I don't really have anything specific in mind. Right now, I just want to practice. I just need to focus, like Tigran told me to. It takes a moment, but soon I feel as if I'm walking on air. Then the weightless feeling leaves my body, and I now feel as if I'm walking on solid ground. It's soft, though. Grass? Suddenly, I feel warmth and my eyes are open to a completely different place. The body I'm living in right now feels different from Raynar's, but it also feels the same. The scenery is definitely familiar, though. There's no mistaking that this is the castle gardens. Some of the plants are different from what I personally remember, but everything else, for the most part, is the same. It feels like a warm summer day, but the breeze is strong. Birds take refuge in the trees and chirp to their heart's content. Whoever this is, they seem to be looking around a lot, as if they're searching for something. It's not a frantic search, though. At one point, my vision is lowered and I can see the rest of their body. It's a female's body, which throws me off at first, but for some reason it doesn't feel strange. One would think this scenario would be weird, but I don't find anything strange. It's as if I've lived in this body my whole life. I found that after a while, it starts to feel that way. The more times I've done this, the more I start to feel at home. I take my mind off of the philosophy of the situation and instead try to wrap my head around who she is. She's wearing an emerald green dress made of a light cloth. It reaches the ground in the back, but is lifted up in the front, allowing me to see her hooves. They're small and dainty, but walk steady and firm. The fur on her body is a light brown. Am I inside the mind of the queen? It's a possibility. I'm pretty sure this person is a deer. She continues to scan the area, leaning over to look behind the bushes. Where are you? She speaks in a soft, childish manner, and it feels strange having this voice feel as if it's coming from my mouth. I don't think I'll get used to that anytime soon. She looks up into a tree, and through the leaves I can see someone. It's a young fawn. He's perched in the tree looking down at her with a smiling face. There's no antlers on his head, and his cheeks are covered in little spots. His eyes are big and the pupils shine like amber. It's Adrius. He's very young, though, about 6 or 7. His clothes are nice and the shirt seems to be a size too big. He lets out a giggle and his tense body relaxes. It's as if he thought he couldn't be seen if he was absolutely still. This is also most definitely his mother. She crosses her arms and I can feel the smile curling on her lips. Found you. That's not fair. His voice is high in pitch, but soft. Oh? And why is that? He goes to point at her, but quickly brings his arm back to the tree limb he's holding on to. You were peeking! She laughs a sweet and happy laugh while shrugging her shoulders. Was not. I just got lucky. Ha ha. He says this with an exaggerated attempt at sarcasm. You have to admit, it took me quite a while. She leans against the tree he's in. Yeah, it did take you a long time. I almost starved. He says this in a dramatic way, how a child usually would when exaggerating something. It's honestly surprising seeing him full of so much joy. I assume he wasn't completely awful, especially as a kid. But it's nice to see him smiling. Closest I've ever got to seeing something that was a smirk. Closest I've ever got to seeing that was a smirk. Can you hide this time and I seek? She steps away from the tree and nods. Yes, sweetie. You can come down from there now. He looks down and a sliver of fear gleams in his eyes. I can't. You got up there this time without my help. Surely you can get down on your own? He peers over the branch and shakes his head. No. She lets out a sigh and holds out her arms. Okay, jump down and I'll catch you. From that far away? He shakes his head more. Trust me? He hesitates for a moment, but then does a weak leap from the tree, not before plucking a wildflower from one of the limbs. He lands in her arms and she catches his weight, swinging him around a little bit before setting him on the ground. Thanks, Mom. The small Adrius hops up and down a bit before running over to someone by one of the garden walls. I immediately recognize who's by the wall. This is too precious. Raynar is tending to a small bed of flowers. He's wearing a cotton shirt and a leather apron. It's covered in dirt and water, but he still looks as regal as ever with his crown sitting upon his head. If I could feel my own insides right now, they would be twisting up into a knot. Yes, this is Daddy. Seeing him again sends a rush of sorrow through my mind, but then I sense Elena's emotions. They're warm and fuzzy. Father, did you see it? Raynar probably didn't see it, but he turns around and ruffles his head fur. Of course it's off, fuzzball. You weren't even scared, were you? Adrius looks off to the side in embarrassment. A little bit. Raynar looks down at him with a warm smile. This is way too precious, and the stream is shitting itself right now. It can't handle the preciousness. Stream, why do you shit yourself all the time? That's okay. The important thing is that you did it anyway. Hang on, we're gonna wait for the stream to recover a bit because it does this all the time. The important thing is that you did it anyway. I got you this. He holds out his little hand and a crumpled wildflower can be seen laying in it. Wow, look at that. Hang on. It's even my favorite color. He carefully picks the flower up by the stem and holds it between his fingers. Since it's so important, I'll put it up here. God damn this man. He places the flower between his ear next to his crown. Elena picks up her dress and starts to walk toward them. How do I look? Adrius struggles to hold back laughter. Silly. Yeah, I probably do. Adrius points at a few flowers and Raynar gets a little bit excited and starts to talk about them. He seems much happier and energetic compared to the calm and collected king I'm used to. Before the queen can get any closer, my vision starts to fade. All of the scenery gets pulled away from my eyes as if it's being carried down a river. I'm back in my cell, sitting exactly where I was before. There's a commotion down the hall and I can barely make out the voices. You get distracted too easily. Shh, I'm trying to listen. I lean a bit closer to the door, trying to hear better. State your business, please. I'm here to see Lord Richter. It's Leaf. Hearing a small voice is more welcoming than I thought it would be. I wish to speak to him about something. Very well. Do you need help with that? I can hear Leaf grunt slightly. No, thank you. I should be able to manage. If I listen closely, I can hear the pitter-patter of his taloned feet echo down the hall as he gets closer and closer. I get up from the floor and go sit on the end of the bed by the door. Leaf. Soon Leaf comes into view and I can see that he's carrying an old book. Even to me this book would be large, but for him it's monstrous. It's bound as leather that's practically falling apart and some of the pages are falling out of the book, crammed in between other pages. He's holding it in his arms and sets it down with a big thud. Hello. He's looking down at the ground and I can tell he's a bit nervous. Hey, what did you want to talk about? Oh, I spoke with Lyre a little while ago. About what? I'll get to that in a minute. You didn't actually kill the king, right? You're seriously asking if I would kill your king. I just wanted to hear it from you, okay? Okay. You have to admit, it's not really looking to be in your favor. Lyre managed to convince me, but if I still believed you did it, would you blame me? He brings up a good point. We had our chats from time to time, but he had every right to assume I had done it, given how it happened. No, I wouldn't. Especially given the circumstance and everything that happened. Well, I believe that you weren't the one to do it. There's something wrong with it all. But enough of that. I've been doing a lot of research on those headaches you've been getting. Along with that weird dream. Ah, yes. This should help. Or not. These books are usually heavily inaccurate and filled with harsh exaggerations. Why does it do that? I try to tune Tigran out as Leaf opens the book to the page he had bookmarked. That's good. I still do get headaches from time to time. The constant noise doesn't help. Really? It's so quiet down here, though. Not all the time. Oh, okay. Well, you were saying that you had a full recount on the death of our queen, correct? Yes. Along with the fact that it was from Raynar's perspective? Yes, it was from his perspective. Is there anything that says how to stop the headaches? No, there isn't. But I can stop those for you easily with the right medicine. I found something very interesting, though. I searched in the library for hours and I eventually found this book. It's old and dusty and was crammed between some other books on the highest shelf. At first I almost skipped right over it, but I realized this might have some answers. It's a bit religious though, so bear with me. Let's hear it then. Okay. You're familiar with the Supreme Being, Tigran? See? All these silly titles they come up with. Somewhat. Our land was named after them, right? Yes, well, they were an ancient god that the people of this land used to worship back when religion was one of the pillars of our society. Their influence was strong for a very long time, but after a while, faith was broken. There are only a few people who still worship them today, and any churches we would have had are most likely crumbling ruins. I've heard that there's one that's still intact. You can visit it somewhere in Driss. Drissians are very obsessed with preservation. Leaf? Sorry, I always ramble. My point is, they believe that on a very rare occasion, someone would be born with the ability of retrocognition. Yeah? Like seeing the past? Yes. It is said to be a blessing from Tigran themselves. A way to help living beings guide themselves to a brighter future. It says here that those with this ability can see past events in dreams through the perspective of others with proper training. They can even see events while conscious, and can sometimes view said events as an outsider. He skims over the pages with his gloved wing. There's not much information on this, though. There's something about witchcraft and other nonsense, something about a mind's eye, a few mentions of people with this ability being executed, but nothing is well documented. That's not a correlation, I swear. The ability hasn't shown up in a very long time, though, and seems to be lost in time. Lord Richter, I believe that those dreams you were having weren't just dreams. It seems you were having visions. You might just be the next avatar for Tigran. Hearing him say this lifts a weight off of my chest, knowing that I might not be crazy. The weight is immediately put back down though once I realize what this could mean. I can't trust anyone with this information right now. Before it gets out, it could cause serious problems. You want my advice? Play it off. You're right. You're right. Leaf, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I've come to the conclusion that it was just a dream. Nothing more. Yes, but isn't it a bit strange? You're a man of science. You really believe that I have some magical ability to see into the past? Leaf looks at me through his goggles with an impatient gaze. There's something else this old book mentions. It mentioned the fact that anytime they look into the past, their eyes change to a different color. He leans in and stares at me with his beady little eyes. That's odd. Your eyes are green. If I recall, they were always that color. Oh, thank God. Thank God indeed. You're welcome for that. I may not be able to do much, but I know what I'm doing. Either that or it's just pure coincidence they would be green after that last vision. Maybe you're right. I just thought I would come down here and entertain you with the idea. Lyle seemed skeptical too. Also here, he hands me a small glass jar full of what looks like pebbles. I'm not supposed to give you this, but it's my job to make sure people are healthy. I also trust you. You'd better not take advantage of that fact. I take the vial from him. Thank you. You're welcome. Take one anytime you get a headache and no more than one. Also hide them. He goes and picks up the book. He struggles to lift it up, but eventually straddles it in both arms. I'll try to visit again soon. Before he walks off, he turns around. One last thing. Lyle says he loves you. He wishes he could be down here with you more than anything. Ooh, that's drama. He turns around and starts walking away. Bye, Leaf. Goodbye, Richter. His footsteps trail off into the distance, and I'm again left alone in silence. The sun is beginning to set over the mountains, and I feel a chill rush over my body. My clothes are damp and cold, so I had to take off the bulk of them. It's better to wear as little clothing as possible when they're wet like this. I pick up my coat and hang it on the bars of the cell door. After spreading it out to dry easier, I sit down on the bed and lean back. Staring at the ceiling, I try to concentrate and gather myself. Soon, everything fades into nothing. Then the swirling colors flow into my vision. The ground ripples beneath my feet like a rushing current. Tigran, however, is nowhere to be found. Can you come out? I'd rather talk with you face to face. The large chimera god appears before me in a shimmering flash. The bright green flames dance off of their fur and float up into the air. You don't trust the bird? I don't trust anyone right now. Not with this, at least. I was going to tell Lyle, but that won't be happening anytime soon. They make a reassuring gesture with their hand. I, for one, believe that you're wise to not trust anyone with this. For now, it is best to keep it to yourself. You think he suspects it anyway? I know whether he suspects it or not. But for your amusement, I'll pretend I have no outside knowledge. I think he might suspect you're my avatar. They say this like they're walking on eggshells. So he does. He does a deep, grumbling sigh. Get some rest. You've done enough practice for today. Was he right about the persecutions and all that? You have the ability to find out for yourself, but you'll have to try later. Please try to sleep. You need the energy. Fine. Leaving is much easier than when I arrived, and before I know it, I'm back in the cell. I lay down onto the bed and spread out, gathering the rest of my body as close to myself as possible to keep warm. Closing my eyes, my exhausted body relaxes, and I drift off into a deep sleep, thinking about all of the things I've seen in past memories today. Hopefully they'll be of some use. I just need to practice. That works out a lot, somehow. This isn't the end, though, because in case you didn't notice, right there, I completely forgot to update it when the new update came out. I'm so sorry. Actually, let me check something. Yeah. We are going to play the new update tomorrow. I just need to like mod it and whatnot so it does this. Yeah. Not much else can be said, so stay safe, have a good night, and I'll see you all tomorrow.